Hey, I get it when you're staring at a list of high-end gaming laptops, the excitement mixes with a little dread. You don't want to drop a few $1,000s on a machine that looks amazing on paper but ends up gathering dust in the corner because it can't keep up with what you actually play, or because it's a pain to lug around. That's why I'm breaking down the Alienware M15R6 so you can figure out if it's the right companion for those long night raids and occasional on-the-go sessions before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the kind of gamer who'd feel at home with this notebook. If you're a serious PC gamer who regularly runs titles like Cyberpunk 2077, Apex Legends, or the newer releases in the Call of Duty franchise at settings that push beyond 1080p, the M15R6 QHD 240Hz display and RTX 3060 GPU give you a solid foothold. The 2560x1440 resolution paired with a 240Hz refresh rate means you'll notice smoother motion and sharper detail compared to the more common 1080p, 144Hz panels. For someone who likes to see every texture and prefers competitive play where every frame matters, that extra visual fidelity can feel like a real advantage. The built-in NVIDIA GeForce support also means you won't be battling screen tearing when you crank the frame rate. Now, who should walk away? If you're mostly playing esports titles that are already comfortable at 1080p, like Valorant or League of Legends, you might not squeeze enough extra benefit from the QHD display to justify the premium. Those games rarely need the extra pixel count, and you could get similar performance with a cheaper 1080p laptop that still runs at 144Hz. Also, if you're on a tight budget because the Alienware brand carries a premium price tag, you might find better value in a non-Alienware model that offers comparable GPU performance but at a lower cost. In short, the M15R6 is a sweet spot for gamers who want high-resolution, high-refresh visuals without stepping into the full desktop replacement territory. Let's get into the day-to-day experience. The 15.6-inch screen is large enough to feel immersive yet still portable enough to slip into a standard backpack. What I really appreciate is the Comfort View Plus technology that reduces blue light without sacrificing contrast. This matters if you're pulling all-nighters. You've probably heard the complaints about eye strain, and this laptop tries to mitigate that. I've seen users say they can actually leave the laptop on for a few extra hours and still feel okay. That being said, the panel's 19 milliseconds response time isn't the absolute lowest you'll find. It's a little slower than the 12 milliseconds panels you see on some 1080p 300Hz laptops. In fast-paced shooters, that could translate to a barely perceptible blur during very quick movements, but for most players the difference is subtle. Performance-wise, the 11th Gen Intel Core i7-11800H is a workhorse. With 8 cores pushing up to 4.6 GHz, it handles modern titles quite well, and it's also ready for non-gaming workloads, think video editing or streaming your gameplay. The 16 GB of DDR4 RAM is sufficient for today's games and multitasking scenarios, but if you plan to run a lot of RAM-intensive background applications while gaming, you might feel a pinch after a while. Upgrading to 32 GB is possible, but it adds to the cost. The 512 GB SSD, while fast, can feel cramped once you start installing large AAA titles plus updates, mods, and your game library. I'd recommend a secondary external SSD if you want to keep the internal drive lean. The device has a solid M.2 slot that can accommodate an additional drive down the line. Connectivity is another area where this alien-themed machine shines. The killer Wi-Fi 6AX1650 module delivers a stable, low-latency wireless connection, which is crucial when you're playing competitive games on a shared network. It also supports Bluetooth 5.2, making it easy to pair your headset and other peripherals without lag. The only downside is the port selection. Alienware keeps the design sleek, so you'll find only a handful of USB-C ports and a single HDMI 2.1 output. If you need multiple external displays or a wired Ethernet connection, you'll have to bring a dock or an adapter, which adds to the accessory budget. Heat management is a practical concern for any gaming laptop. The M15R6 uses a dual fan, vapor chamber cooling system that does a decent job of keeping the CPU and GPU temps in check under moderate loads. When you push the RTX 3060 in a demanding title, the fans ramp up noticeably and you'll hear a higher pitch, but the system stays below thermal throttling thresholds for most sessions. However, in a marathon gaming night that stretches beyond 3 hours, you'll notice the keyboard warming up, and the fan noise can become a bit distracting if you're in a quiet room. That's a trade-off you have to accept for a thin, high-performance chassis. Battery life is another hidden factor. Gaming laptops aren't known for long unplugged sessions, and the M15R6 is no exception. Expect